In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use Photoshop to make a fun silhouette merged photograph. So I've got a silhouette picture here, and I've got some fall leaves. And we're going to take this silhouette photo and show you some fun things that you can do with it. Let me give you an idea of some of the things that I'm thinking of here. Let's put these back away here. Okay, so merging some silhouettes together with other photographs can do some very unique looking photos and very artistic and neat. Some of these were done in the darkroom by laying two negatives over the top of each other, and you can get some very neat double exposure type images. But now today in Photoshop, these are very fun to do and neat. And so these are just some really fun merged photos. You could even see this photo on that. It's actually sideways, but just the way it's merged in together with the image there, the portrait, it becomes very creative and exciting. And so we're going to kind of do this today. We're going to take a silhouette photo and merge it together with a photo with a white background, and they can become very beautiful and powerful. Again, the photo there is sideways. These are interesting, kind of looking through the image. We'll do a little bit of this as well to give you some ideas on how to do some silhouette merged images. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two images, the silhouette and the leaves here. First we want to do is take the silhouette and drag it onto the leaf. So just with the move tool, we're just going to drag it on, and we're done with this photograph here. And we've got those two on top of each other, and we need to, I'm going to make this a little bigger, so I'm going to hit Control T, hold down Shift, or Command on a Mac, hold down Shift, and I'm just going to bring it up about so big here. Okay. Then what I want to do is, anytime you want to turn the layer off, so it's not, I should say not off, but unlock it, so it's not locked in its position. Like right now, if I try to bring this below it, see how it says no, you cannot do that? Just click on the lock and then it's unlocked, and then you can drag this down below. So now the photo's down below, now the photo's up above. You can drag the layers up and down. Okay, I'm going to take the magic wand. Now the magic wand is hidden underneath the quick selection tool, so if you can't find it, just hold down on the quick selection tool and there's the magic wand. And on this top layer, I'm going to click on the white part. I'm going to delete it, so I just click on the white part and hit delete. And so delete all of your white background from the silhouette. Or if you have a photo that you want to make a silhouette, you can just delete the edges. Now, these little what I call marching ants, the selection, just hit deselect or Command D, or you can always go up here to select and deselect. But I've learned that Command or Control D is a quick way to get rid of those. All right, so now we've got this image here. Okay, now we're going to take the magic wand and we're going to click on that silhouette. Now, if I hit delete here, you can just see the marching ants going around the image. All right, and then I'm just going to drag this one on top. Okay, so we've got this photo on top. Now if I hit delete, it's just going to be white cut out of that. That's exactly opposite what I want. So I'm going to hit go back in time, Command or Control D, depending if you're on a Mac or PC, and I'm going to invert it. So it's not the man there with the hat, but it's the outside. So we go to Select, Inverse. Now everything else is selected but the man. I'm just going to delete, and there you go. It's all deleted out of the background. So if you look at your layers palette, we've got nothing on the background. We've got just the leaves here. So pretty neat effect. If I take the move tool here, you know, I can move it around my picture and it's deleted out. Kind of a neat effect. Now let's go back in time here. So I'm just going to hit Control Alt Z or Command Option Z on a Mac. I'm going to go back in time. I'm going to go back before I deleted that. And then I'm going to hit Command D or Control D on a PC, so the marching ants aren't going around. Now, before I do all of this, I usually like to make a copy of these layers. So just right-click on them and hit Duplicate Layer, hit OK. Or I'm going to copy this one, or I can just drag it right down here next to the trash can, right there, and that'll duplicate it. And I like to turn off the ones I'm not using. So you want to do that so you keep these protected. You could move this down here and just, you know, I'm working on these ones with the eyeball or the visible, and these are invisible. The reason you want to do that, in case you make a mistake, you can go back in time, or you can make some neat effects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my magic wand. I'm going to click on the man here, okay? And then I'm not going to delete the background here. I am going to right-click and select inverse. Or again, I can go to select and inverse. But if you right-click, you can get to it as well, in that background. And if we hit delete, okay, now if I go to this background, I hit delete. So I've got this top copy, so I'll take my move tool here. This is kind of a neat effect. I'll take my move tool and I'll move it over. See, it's down below it, okay? So maybe if I reposition these below it, now I can make like a drop shadow. Now this might be kind of a fun effect. Hit Control D to get rid of those marching ants or the selection. Control D is in deselect or select, deselect, okay? Here I've got this drop shadow. That's kind of cool looking. But if you want to do something neat with it, I'm on this bottom layer. I'm going to take my filter and blur it. So I'm going to go to Filter, okay, and Blur. Now, when you do the blur, try some of these different blurs, like Gaussian blur or lens blur. These are going to give you that bokeh background effect. See how the blur around the edges? And you can go through now. This is, sorry, it's so big. If I bring it over here, I can kind of show you some of these. We can go through and we can do some different perspective blurs and blade curvatures and rotation and all types of fun, brightness and darkness. But now if I hit OK, it gives even a neater effect back here. And then if I turn down the opacity, so it looks kind of three-dimensional there. And then if I go to Layer and Flatten Image, hit OK. That's a neat photograph now. So people go, how did you do that? Well, I just showed you. Now let me go back in time, Command Alt or Command Option Z or Control Alt Z on a PC. I'm going to go back in time so I didn't delete that background. Let's do this with the background. I'm going to hit Filter, Blur, and I'm going to do a motion blur. So now if you look at the background here, I can make it look like it's twisted or blurred that way. Let me turn the opacity back up that so you can really see this. So if you look at this here, I can go to Filter, Blur, Motion Blur. Or there's radius blur. There's all types of blurring effects you can do, and you can do it like a blur this way. You can make it really kind of blurred. You can do it just a really fun effects back in the background there. And again, go to Layer and Flatten Image. You can kind of see the whole effect here. Isn't that neat? So lots of ways. Now let's go to the top and do the same thing. So I'm going to go back in time. I'll go back to right there. That's good. And I'm going to go to the top one. And on the top one here, I can do the same thing. I can go to Filter, Blur, and I don't know, Radial Blur. It's not showing the effect on that. Wow. Yeah, I won't show it until you actually do it. So you can do some really fun effects. So it's a Filter, Blur, and that Radial Blur, but you just can't see it immediately. But if you kind of bring it back here a little bit, just kind of give it a little spin. You know, so again, we can do some really, really cool effects to your images. All right. Okay, so that's one thing to do. Let me go back in time. Use my history here and go back in time there. Let's go back to that right there. All right, now I can get this background involved here. Okay, and do some really fun things. So here I've got the background on. I can turn the opacity down to that background, so you can still kind of see the whole thing through it, which is kind of neat. We can do some erasing of that background. So I'll turn this one up a little bit and then kind of move it more into position there. So kind of knocked out idea. And then again, I've got this one here that's, I want to keep that in the right space, but still, you can kind of do some fun things like that. We could go in here and add effects to it. Like I can do a stroke around it, which looks impressive as well. Or instead of turning the stroke on, maybe a bevel emboss to it. And a drop shadow if you want. Instead of using the drop shadow I made, I can make another drop shadow off the other side. So, wow, pretty powerful, huh? Okay, the last thing to do, that was a silhouette idea. I'm going to not save that. Okay, I'm going to go and open up a few more photos here. That's on my desktop. And I'll just come down here to the same fall leaves. And I'm going to open a beautiful photo of Sandra Bullock. Okay, now this will be impressive. What we'll do is we'll take this photo of Sandra Bullock and we'll drag it on top. Okay, and I'll hit Control T and just make it a little bit bigger, just a little bit, just so it fills it up totally full. Control 0 or Command 0 and just kind of go like that. Now this will be kind of fun. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my eraser, and before I do that, I'm going to go down to my layers palette. Let me get rid of this photo here for just a moment. Okay, so now you look at the photo. I've got Sandra Bullock here, and I've got the background. Okay, now before I start, I'm going to come down and use a new tool called the mask. Click on that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do some erasing on this mask, not on the original photograph. So when I take my paintbrush and put black on the top here, oops, I didn't do that. Black on the top, so I'm just going to reverse these so it's black on top. And as I erase, you're going to see the other photo come through. And so you could follow the contour of the person and just carefully erase. And so you kind of use that as the tool there, or your guidelines here to erase that background image. So just using a really nice photo. Now making a bigger brush, you can just use your bracket keys. Now, by the way, the eraser I'm using is a nice soft eraser, see? Not a hard line, but a soft one. And using my bracket keys, and I can just erase that. And I'm just following the contour of her body and just the profile there. So that's kind of a fun way to make that image look powerful. And as we get closer here to her hair and her, I'll do a face right there. As we get closer here, we just take our bracket keys, make them really small, and then you can just kind of follow her hairline here just to kind of fix it up and even get it more perfect. Oops, I made a little mistake there. Now here's the thing. When you make a mistake, if you come out here and you go, oops, I made a mistake, just swap back to white. Now take a look at this, what I'm doing here. See, I'm just erasing the mask. I'm not erasing her, I'm erasing the mask. So if I want to paint the mask back in with white, I can paint back in and it's back in. So I'll make a bigger brush here. And I can fix where I make mistakes. So here I made some mistakes, okay? All right, so that's pretty cool, but here's what's fun. Turn the opacity down. And now I'm kind of seeing it through the background. So that's an impressive way to do it. Now, let me go back in time. So that's kind of a neat photograph already. And what's fun is I'll kind of get to this point right here. I'll just turn the opacity down a little bit. And take your paintbrush, put black back on top, and turn the opacity down of your eraser. Make a bigger eraser, and you can kind of blend it off here. You can kind of have it like so there's some movement to the photograph. So let me just turn the opacity back up so you can really see this. So that's kind of interesting looking at how you can kind of bring some of it in. Now I'm going to go back in time. I don't want quite as much as that. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back right there. I'm going to bring this down lower opacity, bring this back up on your, and then just kind of blend it in. And then really make your brush big, and you can kind of just do a little bit of what you want. So it's got this just a beautiful, okay. Now here's more impressive. I'll go back in time before I erased her. Okay, now before you start doing you got your mask. I'm gonna turn the mask on. Okay, there's the mask. Okay, and I'll take my paintbrush, black, good. Now take my paintbrush smaller. All right, turn the opacity down and then start painting over her. Now we get some beautiful artistic stuff going on. We're using her beauty and the beautiful portrait of her and bringing just a little bit of the leaves in. So it just becomes very powerful. Okay, now as you paint, let's say we got too much over the eyes there. Now, by the way, I'm going to make this bigger with my bracket keys. Just kind of paint some of it in there and a little bit in there. Okay. Now, making more of her face. Just reverse that, turn the opacity, keep the opacity down of the brush, and then paint it back in. So you can kind of really decide how much you want. I don't quite so much there, so much here, more of her face. Like I'm just erasing. Now look at this. Really all I'm doing is I'm just playing and painting on this, not her at all, and the leaves. The leaves are just down below her, and I'm just erasing her, but through a mask. And here's something else neat. Let's kind of do this a little bit here. Looks nice. Here's something else neat. I can take my background, turn off the lock, take my move tool, and I can move that around. So I can kind of decide where I want it. I can make it bigger by hitting Control T, and then I can make this photo bigger, the background. So I can really kind of play with those leaves. Control T again, hit Control 0 so you can see all the background here. And then just take my paintbrush, go back to black, and that's erasing it, and white is bringing it back. So I can kind of erase some of this back. Now if I go back to 100%, it's going to go like completely away. I'm totally erasing it. So if I want to kind of go back to where I was. So the right photo and the right background can be a very powerful tool. Again, I'm erasing here. And then I can take my opacity down a little bit, flip it to black, and then just kind of bring some more of that back in. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah, have fun just playing with merging two photos and doing some silhouettes.